how do you see data moving from simply being a digital asset to becoming a strategic business asset?
So, Arjun, I think the way you opened the conversation, I think it was extremely appropriate because, things like data is now getting the kind of importance which it thus far never had, and it has only been on a rise because a lot of companies now have seen the potential of investing into data-driven decision making.
Indeed.
So that's where enterprises have now started looking at data very differently from something that they needed to have, more like a system of records to more like an asset, like you rightly put it, where they can actually harvest, invest, and then convert it into something more meaningful, whereby the business potential completely changes. So data is now actually providing a delta increment in the revenue, or maybe a delta decrement in the cost, or a delta increment in productivity. And all this, what all the three translate into, more importantly, is a delta increase in the customer experience, where there's a thrust of completely utilizing data, getting into intent-driven conversations, getting into contextual conversations, getting into predictive conversations, utilizing data to, for example, understand what is the tendency of a particular customer when he's interacting with you, what is it that he is looking for, and more importantly, what is the lifetime value that this customer presents to you, so you can treat him with commensurate importance. So it's now almost become a rhetorical question when someone says that, okay, is data important? It's almost rhetorical. People have invested into data sciences. They are looking at more and more ways of collecting meaningful data, converting into insights, intuitive insights, and then utilizing them and interweaving them into the business processes that run the organization.
Yeah, that's fascinating because Dhaval, I'm going to pick up a couple of things that you said, and Srini, I'm going to bring that to you. Dhaval very supremely articulated the concept of harvesting the data, but I want you, Srini, to take a step back. In your experience and your visibility, given the wide spectrum that you have within Dell Technologies to be interacting with the outside world, folks like CIOs and so on, are you even being able to see the ingestion happening in its judicious manner for it to be harvested for greater business outcomes? Srinivas Rao.
Okay, let me give a little perspective about what Mr. Dhaval has highlighted. As the transformation becomes a table stake for the survival, data has rapidly becomes organizations' most valuable asset today. I think in today's world, data along with seamless user engagement is the ultimate source of competitive differentiation what organizations are carrying it today. And if we believe leaders in the data era will be those organizations who modernize their data management approach to become at an intelligent business in their environment. By doing so, they will reimagine the customer experience, product, and their business models as well, which they have planned to deliver in the coming future as well. And the most important agenda for the organizations right now is to figure out how to create new value for their customers, because that's very, very relevant in today's era, and specifically at the post-pandemic era as well, and how to innovate and develop and deliver the new value at speed. That is becoming very, very crucial. To be ready for what's next, organization needs to timely access this high quality, trusted data so that you can develop personalized and I would say integrated experiences for their customers. Second, create smart and connected services and products to develop their business, and develop a data-driven business models which allow organizations to adopt new value chains and participate in the new digital ecosystems. Okay, for all these things to be achieved, as you rightly mentioned, the data ingestion is very, very crucial, and putting a right kind of data management framework is very, very crucial to really be successful in deriving the value from the data which has been which is very, very crucial for the customers. Yeah, we are in the journey. We are not up to the expectations, but I think all the organizations are in the journey, and you will see this data ingestion and integrating and providing the meaningful information will evolve more and more as we go forward, and as their customer demands more and more out of them.
That's actually quite fascinating, really, Srinivas, because Dhaval, I'm going to bring that to you. And in the fashion that I'm going to articulate this question is, Srini spoke very brilliantly about value for customers. He spoke about integrated experiences. Now, when you kind of boil that all together, how important in your view, and given that you now are almost neck deep with your varied experience within technology, how important is it to create a data management architecture, especially in view of organizations attempting to drive innovation-led hyper-competitiveness? How important does that become, and what in your essential guidance should be the approach?
So you rightly put it when you started the conversation, Arjun, to say that data is now the new oil or it is the new gold, right? And I firmly believe that like oil or gold, it needs mining, right? So you have to put in that effort. So it's not about gathering more and more data, right? It's about gathering the right data, because let's take a step back and understand what we are trying to do here. By investing in data sciences and data driven decision making, we are now replacing what earlier used to be based on experience or hunch, which means that we are now challenging the past. We are basing more and more important futuristic decisions that will possibly determine the course of the enterprise on this particular on certain insights that we have collected.
Indeed.
So it becomes utmost importance, not just so two or three things should be the guiding principle here in my view. It is not about getting more and more data. There is a plethora of data. In about say 10 years time, there will be about a petabyte of data available online for every user of the internet. That's the volume of data that we are talking about. So there is no dearth of data. It is about getting the right data, and it is more importantly about maintaining that data. Unless and until you keep that data recent and relevant, there will be certain biases creeping into when you say, for example, run data science using AI and ML over that stack of data. So there will be biases creeping into it. And given the volume of data that it will churn, it will become next to impossible to challenge that decision then based on a second guess. So what it means essentially is that you need to have a very clear data management architecture, a very clear data layer, a monolithic layer of data, which will provide a single source of truth as far as all the important data records and data types are concerned. For example, I should have a single source of truth for my customer, for my material, for my revenue master, for my cost master, for example, certain taxation, certain inventory points. It's important to have one point of truth that is referenceable and not questionable. And this can only be achieved if you have a data management architecture in place, a data management strategy more important in place, which drives that architecture and keeps telling you as to how you are supposed to deal with that particular data that you are having, given the privacy rights, right? Today, GDPR is becoming more and more of a talking point. So how are you going to keep that, not only keep the data relevant and recent, how are you going to ensure the privacy, and most importantly, how are you going to keep it secure? Because with more and more data becoming, enterprises becoming data driven, they are only making themselves more and more vulnerable to attacks, because they know, because the prying eyes know that this is something that can bring the entire machinery to a grinding halt. So having the right data management strategy is a good point, is a good starting point, where you are able to clearly articulate what is the type of data that you want to capture, how are you going to store it, where are you going to store it, how frequently are you going to update it, what is the classification of that data, for example. Are there tuples which are, for example, private, they are confidential, they are internal only, or they are public? So all of this has to become a coherent part of your data management strategy, which in turn translates into a data management layer, a data management architecture, and drives all these principles of data management.